My daughter sat down at the main table.My father shoved the chair back. Kids like you sit with the extras, he said. The entire table went silent. I lifted her up, brushed off her dress, and looked at him. 4 words left my mouth. His face changed instantly. My mother stopped breathing for a second. My daughter sat down at the main table. My father shoved the chair back so hard it scraped across the floor and everyone turned. Kids like you sit with the extras. The room went silent. My daughter froze. She was 6 and had just spent 10 minutes deciding where to sit because she wanted to be near the candles in the middle of the table. She had smoothed her dress before climbing onto the chair. Now she just looked at me. I walked over, lifted her up, brushed the crumbs from her dress and looked at my father. 4 words left my mouth. Not in my house. His face changed instantly. My mother stopped breathing for a second. For context, the house technically was mine. But that part of the story is where things start getting uncomfortable. Because the house my parents were sitting in. Table. The food. The mortgage being paid every month. The electricity that kept the lights on above my father's head while he embarrassed my daughter. That was all coming from me. My father stared at me like I had just said something insane. Isabella, he said. Don't start. I didn't answer him. I just pulled a chair out and sat my daughter next to me. Across the table my sister Amanda was staring down at her plate. Her 2 kids were sitting exactly where my father wanted them. At the center of the table like little royalty. My daughter whispered to me, "Did I do something wrong?" "No." That was the only thing I said. My father leaned forward. "This table is for family." And that sentence told you everything about him. Because apparently my daughter wasn't family. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then my mother forced a smile and tried to restart dinner like nothing had happened. "Everyone eat before it gets cold." Plates started moving again, but the silence stayed. My daughter barely touched her food. And the worst part? This wasn't the first time. It had been happening for years. Little comments. Different rules. Small humiliations that my daughter was apparently supposed to accept because my father had decided she didn't belong in the same category as Amanda's children. And the more I sat there that night, the more something in my head started lining up. Because the man who had just told my daughter she didn't belong at the family table had called me 2 weeks earlier asking if I could help cover their mortgage again. And I had said yes. Just like I had every other month for the last 3 years. I looked around the table. The chandelier above us. The plates. The kitchen my parents loved showing off to their friends. All of it existed because I kept writing checks. My father picked up his glass like nothing had happened. That's when I realized something. He still thought I needed them. He had absolutely no idea what was about to happen next. And the moment he figured it out would change everything. Dinner continued like nothing had happened. At least that is what my mother tried to pretend. Plates moved around the table. Glasses clinked. My sister Amanda talked about her son's soccer practice like the room hadn't gone completely quiet 10 minutes earlier. My daughter Lily sat next to me picking at her mashed potatoes. Every few seconds she glanced at the center of the table where Amanda's kids were laughing with my father. I saw it. He was trying to figure out the rules. Kids always do that. They think if they understand the rules they can fix the situation. But there were no rules here. Just favoritism. My father reached over and put another piece of chicken on my nephew's plate. "You need to grow strong," he said. Lily looked down at her plate again. I had seen this pattern for years, but something about tonight was different. Maybe because she was finally old enough to notice. After dinner my mother started clearing dishes. "Isabella, leave Lily in the living room with the kids," she said. "The adults need to talk." That word again. Adults. Apparently I was one when the bills came in, but not when decisions were made. I stayed seated. "What do we need to talk about?" My father wiped his mouth with a napkin. "The usual. The bank called." Of course they did. Amanda suddenly became very interested in her phone. My father continued. "They're asking about the mortgage again. Just until things stabilize." Things had been stabilizing for 3 years. I leaned back in my chair. "How much this time?" 2 months, he said. "Maybe 3. My mother quickly added, "Just until your father gets things sorted out." I didn't answer right away. Instead I looked around the kitchen. The marble counters I paid for. The new fridge they had insisted they needed last year. The fresh paint in the dining room. My father noticed the way I was looking around. "You know we'll pay you back." That sentence had been said so many times it barely sounded like language anymore. Across the room, Lily was sitting quietly on the couch while Amanda's kids played with the tablet I had bought them last Christmas. No one had even asked Lily if she wanted to play. That's when my father said the one thing that made the entire room stop again. "You've always been good about helping the family." I looked at him. Helping the family. The same family where my daughter apparently didn't deserve a chair at the table. For the first time in years I didn't answer him. And my father noticed. "You're quiet tonight," he said. I finally spoke. "Yeah," I said. "I've been thinking." He frowned. "About what?" I looked over at Lily again. And suddenly the decision that had been quietly forming in the back of my mind for years became very simple. Because my father thought tonight was going to end the same way it always did. With me agreeing. He had no idea that in less than 10 minutes I was going to say something that would make my mother grab the edge of the counter to stay standing. And it would start with 4 words he had never expected to hear from me. My father waited. He had the same look he always had during these conversations. Confident. Like the ending had already been decided. As for 3 years it always had. I paid the mortgage. Everyone thanked me. A few weeks later the same conversation happened again. I watched him sitting there at the head of the table. The same seat he had just decided my daughter didn't deserve to sit near. "You've always helped the family," he repeated. I nodded slowly. "You're right." My mother relaxed a little when I said that. She probably thought the conversation was already over. My father leaned back in his chair. "So the bank just needs the payment by Friday." Silence sat in the room for a moment. Then I said it. "I'm not paying it." The words landed like something heavy hitting the floor. My mother blinked twice. Amanda looked up from her phone. My father didn't move at first. Then he laughed once. "Isabella, be serious." "I am." Another silence filled the kitchen. My mother spoke first. "Sweetheart, maybe you misunderstood your father." "No," I said. "I understood him perfectly." My father's expression hardened. "You've never had a problem helping before." That was before. Before what? I turned slightly and looked toward the living room. Lily was still sitting quietly on the couch. She had found one of the old magazines on the coffee table and was flipping through it by herself. No one else in the house had noticed she was alone. I looked back at my father. "Before tonight." He followed my gaze toward the living room. Then he scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. She sat in the wrong seat." "The wrong seat," I repeated. "Yes. That table is for." He stopped himself. But it was too late. "For what?" I asked. "For family." There was again. Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her chair. My mother quickly stepped in. "Your father didn't mean anything by it." But he had meant it. He had meant it every time. Every birthday where Lily's gift came last. Every holiday where Amanda's kids got twice the attention. Every small moment that slowly added up into something ugly. My father leaned forward. "You're going to punish us over something this small?" I stared at him for a long moment. Then I said something that made Amanda slowly put her phone down. "Small." He crossed his arms. "Yes. Small." I nodded. "Then it should be easy to live without my money." The air in the room changed instantly. My mother grabbed the counter behind her. "Isabella." But my father still didn't understand what was happening. He thought this was a bluff. "You wouldn't do that," he said. I stood up. "You're right about one thing," I told him. "What?" "This house is for family." He looked confused for a second. Then I added the part he hadn't seen coming. "And the bank called me yesterday too." That was when his face started to change. Because he suddenly realized something. I wasn't just helping with the mortgage. The mortgage was in my name. And he had absolutely no idea what that meant yet. My father stared at me for a long moment. "The bank called you?" he asked. "Yes." "Why would they call you?" I didn't answer right away. Instead I walked into the living room and sat next to Lily. "You ready to go home?" I asked. She nodded immediately. She had clearly been waiting for me to say that. While she went to get her little jacket, I walked back into the kitchen. Everyone was still standing exactly where I had left them. My father was watching me carefully now. "You didn't answer my question." "I know." My mother spoke next. "Isabella, what is going on?" I pulled my car keys from my bag and set them on the counter. Then I looked directly at my father. 3 years ago, I said, when the bank was about to take this house, They wouldn't refinance the loan under your name. He didn't respond. Because he already knew that part. They told you the only way to save the house was if someone with stable income signed the new mortgage. My father shifted in his chair. My mother looked confused. What are you talking about? I continued. So I did it. My mother's face slowly lost color. You helped with the loan, she said. No, I replied. I took the loan. The kitchen went completely silent. Amanda whispered, Wait, what? My father finally stood up. That's not how it works. It is exactly how it works. You just helped with payments. No. I picked up my keys again. The house has been in my name for 3 years. My mother grabbed the back of a chair. No. Your father would have told me. My father didn't say anything. And that was the moment my mother realized something was wrong. She turned toward him. Richard. He still didn't answer. Because he knew it was true. The day the bank approved the refinance, he had signed papers without really reading them. He was too focused on saving the house. And he trusted that I would always keep things the same. But I never planned for tonight. None of us did. Amanda slowly sat down. Isabella owns the house. No one corrected her. My father finally spoke again. You wouldn't use that against us. I looked at him. Against you? Yes. For one stupid dinner conversation? I glanced toward the living room again where Lily was quietly waiting by the door. Then I looked back at him. You think tonight is the problem? He frowned. What is that supposed to mean? I walked toward the door. This wasn't about one chair. My mother's voice came out shaky. Isabella, please don't leave like this. I opened the door and Lily walked over beside me. Before stepping outside, I turned back to look at them one more time. You asked me to help the family. My father nodded slowly. Yes. I shook my head. The problem is, I said, you never considered my daughter part of it. And that was the moment my father finally realized the situation had completely flipped. Because the house he had just tried to control with one sentence at dinner didn't actually belong to him anymore. And he had just pushed out the only person keeping it from being taken away. I drove home in silence. Lily fell asleep halfway through the ride, her head leaning against the window. By the time I pulled into our driveway, it was already dark. I carried her inside and put her in bed without waking her. For a few minutes I just stood there in the hallway thinking about everything that had happened at dinner. Then my phone started ringing. I let it ring. A minute later it rang again. Then Mom. Then Amanda. I didn't answer any of them. By the time I went to the kitchen to make tea, there were already 5 missed calls. And 3 messages. The first one was from my mother. Isabella, please call us. I think there has been a misunderstanding. The second one was from Amanda. Did you seriously threaten them with the house? The third message came from my father. It was short. You are overreacting. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I put the phone down and went to bed. The next morning things got worse. When I checked my phone there were 12 more missed calls. And a voicemail. It was my mother. She sounded different than usual. Isabella. The bank called this morning. They said the payment wasn't made yet and they mentioned your name again. Your father is very upset. Please call us. I didn't call. Instead I logged into the bank account where the automatic transfer usually happened. The payment for the mortgage was scheduled for Friday, just like my father had said. I canceled it. It took less than 10 seconds. For 3 years that payment had gone through every month without fail. Now it was gone. I closed the laptop. An hour later my phone rang again. This time I answered. What did you do? He asked immediately. I stopped paying the mortgage. You can't do that. I just did. You're going to lose the house too. No, I said. There was a pause. Then he realized what I meant. Because legally it was my house. The bank took it, it would be my loss. Not his. Isabella, he said slowly, you're being emotional. That word again. Emotional. Like the last 6 years of watching him treat my daughter like an outsider meant nothing. You embarrassed me last night, he continued. I actually laughed a little when he said that. You embarrassed yourself. You're punishing your parents. No, I said. I'm protecting my daughter. He was quiet for a moment. Then he tried something else. Think about your mother. This house means everything to her. I didn't respond. Because I had thought about my mother. Many times. But my mother had sat at that same table last night while my daughter was told she didn't belong. And she had said nothing. My father finally said the thing he thought would end the conversation. Fine. If you want to act like this, we'll figure something out ourselves. That's a good idea. Then I hung up. 2 days passed. Friday came. The mortgage payment didn't go through. And late that afternoon my phone rang again. This time it was my mother. When I answered, she sounded like she had been crying. Isabella, she said quietly, the bank sent a notice. I already knew what it was. A formal warning. The first step before foreclosure. My mother took a breath. Your father wants to talk. I could hear him in the background. Angry, but also something else. Nervous. For the first time in years, the situation wasn't under his control. And that's when my mother said something I never expected to hear from her. Please come over tonight, she said. Your father wants to apologize. But by that point something inside me had already changed. And I wasn't sure an apology would matter anymore. I didn't go that night. I let my mother's message sit unanswered for almost a full day. Saturday afternoon she called again. Isabella, please. Just come talk. I almost said no again. But Lily was at a birthday party for one of her classmates and the house was quiet. I figured it would be better to finish the conversation once and for all. So I drove over. When I pulled into the driveway, my father's car was there. Amanda's too. Nothing about the house looked different. Same windows. Same porch light. Same place I had helped save 3 years earlier. But the feeling when I walked inside was completely different. My mother met me at the door. She looked tired. Thank you for coming. My father was already sitting at the dining table. The same table from the other night. Amanda sat beside him, silent. I stayed standing. My father cleared his throat. I shouldn't have said what I said about Lily. That was the closest thing to an apology he could manage. My mother quickly added, your father has been under a lot of stress. I didn't respond. He looked up at me. She's your daughter. Of course she's family. I thought about that sentence for a moment. Then I asked a simple question. Since when? No one answered. My father tried again. You're blowing this out of proportion. I looked around the room. The same chairs. The same table. The same place where my daughter had been told she didn't belong. No, I said. I finally stopped ignoring it. My mother sat down slowly. What do you want us to do? I didn't hesitate. Nothing. My father frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm done. With what? With all of it. Silence filled the room again. Amanda finally spoke. You're just cutting us off? Yes. My father leaned forward. You would destroy this family over a child's seat at the table? I shook my head. You destroyed it years ago. He opened his mouth to argue, but I kept going. I paid your mortgage. I fixed the roof. I bought the refrigerator. I paid the property taxes last year. And somehow my daughter still ended up being the one person in this house who didn't belong. No one interrupted. Guess it was true. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Isabella, we love Lily. I looked at her. If that were true, she would have had a chair. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Then my father said something softer than I had ever heard from him. We'll do better. But by that point it didn't matter. Because something had finally clicked for me the moment Lily asked if she had done something wrong. And I had promised myself she would never have to ask that question again. I already sold the house, I said. 3 faces looked up at me. What? Amanda said. The bank approved the sale yesterday morning. Closing is in 3 weeks. My father stood up so fast the chair slid across the floor. You can't do that. I already did. My mother grabbed the table. Where are we supposed to go? That's something you'll have to figure out. The silence after that was heavier than anything that had happened before. My father looked like he wanted to argue. But for once he didn't have any power left in the situation. I walked to the door. Before leaving I said the last thing I would ever say in that house. My daughter deserves better than this family. Then I stepped outside. 3 weeks later the house belonged to someone else. My parents tried calling again after they moved out. My mother sent a few messages asking if we could start over. I never answered. Lily stopped asking why we didn't visit them anymore after a while. Kids move on faster than adults. And the truth is, losing that house probably shocked my parents. But losing access to my daughter was the part they never expected. By the time they realized what they had thrown away, I had already erased them from our lives.